our tale resumes in the dragon hall of the Sunless Citadel in Greyhawk, where our intrepid band of adventurers are seeking an audience with Eustrael, leader of the kobold colony living there. I thought it best to introduce myself as the leader of a band of capable warriors, meet her on the same level, woman to woman. I approached the throne and gave my most extravagant bow. Eustrael revealed that the kobold tribe has inhabited the citadel for many years, and that the goblins serve a human named Belak, someone who had been drawn to the citadel by the strange tree. The goblins had recently stolen the kobold's totem, a white dragon wormling. Eustrael was willing to strike a deal. Meepo would be our guide deeper into the citadel to slaughter goblins and reclaim the dragon. She also told us she'd made the same deal with a group of 4 adventurers, but they had not returned. Elrohir, being a ranger and someone experienced at dealing with a plethora of different creatures, asked if there was anything we could have to help subdue the dragon, or, at the very least, try to ensure that we would not end up as lunch. Meepo was sent to fetch a sack of squirming, squeaking rats. We learned that there would be many traps and creatures other than goblins to face. I attempted to negotiate with Eustrael with regards to the large bronze key hanging from the dragon carved into her throne, to enable us to ensure we could access the chambers necessary to retrieve the living totem. Korac, however, decided that, rather than haggle, he would just pay the rather steep price of 25 gold pieces. I'm not entirely convinced kobolds grasp the concept of a refundable deposit. I wanted to be the one to take the key, but my tiny hands are no match for Korac's, and my attempt to get it from him failed. The conversation done, it was time to head off, and so we followed Meepo as he led us from the hall, back to the room where we'd found him, and into a narrow corridor. The floor was shifting and broken, treacherous and tricky. Meepo scurried across, followed by Gergus, who was most definitely not at a birthday party with a bouncy castle. Gergus, being a dwarf, used his expertise with stone to easily find the safest path. Tethlis went next, his athleticism aiding him to also navigate the path. Elrohir was third to go, his survival skills helping him to pick out dangers. Then it was Korac. He negotiated the first section well enough, but stumbled on the latter part. I'm certain it was the extra weight of that key which set him off balance. I was last. I leapt gracefully across, my acrobatic skill enabling me to leap, somersault and handspring with ease. Of course, since I was the last to cross, nobody actually noticed as they were focused on the route ahead. But anyway, another small square room, empty save for lots of debris, dust and rat droppings. Elrohir was able to detect the tracks of 4 humanoids, despite the fact that they were a few weeks old. At least we knew we were on the right track for our main mission, to locate Caracas and his companions. The next chamber was much larger. On one wall, another stone door with carvings. Unlike the 2 we had previously encountered, however, there was no keyhole, only a strange inscription in a language which Korac recognised as similar to the draconian graffiti on the walls of Meepo's room. There was also a large fountain, long dried up. Elrohir noticed words carved in the same language, and a carved dragon with an open mouth through which water may once have flowed. Whilst Elrohir was taking a closer look at this dragon, I asked Meepo to translate the inscriptions. The one on the fountain read,
"Let there be fire."
And as soon as Meepo spoke these words, a low rumbling started deep within the dragon statue. Elrohir made it out of the fountain just as a red liquid flowed from the mouth and into a small stone basin below. The flow stopped when the bowl was full, but in times long past it would have flowed over the sides and into the main fountain. Korac noticed that the air near the stone door was unnaturally cold, his breath beginning to condense. Meepo seemed perplexed by the words inscribed there, which read,
Rebuke the dead, open the way.
Since there was no way through, Korac decided to take a look at the strange liquid. He took his usual cautious approach, dipping his finger in it, and once it hadn't melted, burnt, or fallen off, gave it a good sniff. The liquid had a strange burnt odour to it, and a similar consistency to water. Elrohir tried to find a way to use the liquid to perhaps open the door, but with the basin immovable and nowhere to put it on or into the door, we had to accept that we wouldn't be going that way just yet. It was at this point that I asked Meepo if I could have one of the rats, telling him I fancied a snack. It seemed easier than explaining my real intention. I carried the rat to the bowl and dunked it in like a tea bag. The rat, understandably, was less than pleased about that and let out a fiery hiccup of indignation. I handed the rat back to Meepo, telling him it was far too plump and should be saved for the dragon, as we'd need the best rats for that. I retrieved a small potion from my bag, downed it, and filled it up with the red liquid. You never know when the ability to burp fire might be handy. We followed Meepo to another door, the corridor extending to the right of us, lined with more doors. Tethlis went a little further up to see what lay in that direction, and noted another carved fountain. We decided it was best to stick with our guide, for now. Another small, square, empty chamber. This time Elrohir could only detect the tracks of 3 humanoids. Meepo, who until this point had been confidently leading us, seemed reluctant to open the door. Tethlis strode up to it, sword drawn, and I snuck my mage hand in front of him to open it before he smashed through. Lifting my fingers to my lips, I muttered the incantation, then moved my hand like I was blowing a kiss. A translucent, pink-tinged, spectral hand floated out from mine. The door opened, revealing another corridor, ending in a small and crudely built wall. From the other side we could hear the noise of goblins, and the cloying smell which pervaded this area of the citadel became even stronger. Tethlis, first to the door, saw that the hall was littered with caltrops. He cleverly suggested that Mage Hand clear the way so we could move unhindered. He's had so many fantastic ideas recently. I can't wait to see what he comes up with next. I managed to clear about a third, pocketing some for myself, as did Elrohir, when the goblins became aware of our presence. The wall gave them cover, making it hard for our ranged attacks to hit. Elrohir shot an arrow and missed. Gergus found that the stench was overcoming him, and he had to step back for a moment. Korac waited until the way was clear to take his turn. The goblins fired once at me and twice at Tethlis. I tried to dodge, but the arrow caught in my hair and slammed into my shoulder. Tethlis didn't even need to move. His chainmail armour wasn't letting anything through. I wiped my hand through my own blood, making it into a fist. I whispered a few words over it, and then opened my palm. I watched as the blood took on the form of a red mist, dividing into 3 and vanishing into the eyes of each of the 3 goblins. 2 managed to resist my bane spell, but it took on 1. I slumped back to nurse my injuries, leaving Tethlis to make his way deftly up to the wall. Holding his longsword in both hands, he swept it in a graceful arc, decapitating one of the goblins. Korac gave a battle cry as his blood boiled, and he was overcome by rage. He charged down the corridor, barely feeling the remaining caltrops. He obliterated one of the goblins, cleaving it in half. Then he turned his attention to the other, and again split it in 2 in a single blow. Gergus offered to heal me, but the blessing of Pelor we received when we entered the citadel had given me a bit of extra resilience, and it wasn't necessary. The goblins swiftly dispatched, and no loot of any real worth, we were eager to press on. Korac could feel his rage begin to subside, so ever the helpful friend, Tethlis went up and gave him a gentle right hook to the jaw. That was all the encouragement needed for Korac to smash the door and go into the next room. A large chamber. Against one wall, 3 human-sized targets which had obviously been well used for practice, judging by the number of arrows embedded in them. Another 3-foot wall blocked the path. Behind it, a group of 5 goblins thirsty for blood. Korac was swiftly followed by Elrohir and the even more nimble Tethlis, the only one of us able to get close enough to strike. Making use of the whip he had liberated from Meepo previously, he struck out and hit one of the goblins, doing little damage. But that's better than none. Gergus and I followed, Meepo bringing up the rear. This time, Elrohir shot true, his arrow finding its target. Tethlis and Korac easily cleared the wall, Korac performing an almost single-handed massacre. Tethlis vaulting over like a gymnast, bringing his sword down, right into the heart of a goblin. Gergus did his best to help, but a 4'8" dwarf trying to see even smaller goblins over a 3-foot wall meant that his sacred flame went a little wide. I spent a bit of time bonding with Meepo over a discussion about the flavours of different types of rat. 3 goblins dead, the remaining 2 decided to flee. Korac, in a full-out rage, holding a large axe already dripping with the blood of their allies, making them reconsider. This is where this part of the story ends. A pile of dead goblins with 2 doors to choose from, and Meepo, now unfamiliar with this area of the Citadel.